What? Like, what just happened? Seriously, what just happened? How did I finish in second place in only my second strongwoman competition? I'm still beside myself and totally astonished at how this went, because I can assure you, I did not anticipate having the performance of a lifetime on Saturday. It went way too well. Like, it was just mind-blowing, and it was kind of like this out-of-body experience. I definitely did not expect to do nearly as well as I did. So what I want to do for this video is kind of get into each event, break down like what my thoughts were, what my mindset was, how it went, and if there's anything I can improve upon. So without a lot of rambling, let's get into it. All right, so event one was a 60-pound circus dumbbell for reps. Now, prior to this competition, I had never put my hands on a circus dumbbell. If you go back and you look at the previous training footage, you'll see that my circus dumbbell at home in my home gym is, real talk, a piece of galvanized steel pipe with a bucket attached. That was the best I could do. Financially, I couldn't afford to get a circus dumbbell, so that was kind of the makeshift option. And it was really just to get used to the positioning of the clean. And my mindset going to the line pretty much throughout the entire day was just get one rep, just one rep. Once one rep was done, anything beyond that was gravy. So I set my dumbbell, I put my hands on the bar. Once time is called, I start lifting, and this thing flew up. Like, I did not expect this to go as fast as it did. So I threw it up, kept going. I was like, I got a lot of time. 60 seconds is a lot of time. You know, I learned that from Canine Disc, that 60 seconds is a lot of time. So I just kept repping it out. It's a little bit unwieldy. It's not as clean as I would like it to be. The stability in hand wasn't as great. So my cleans look really good. My presses look really good, but holding it overhead is a little unstable. So that's something I kind of need to work on. I got a little tired around eight reps, took a break, started up again, went for a couple more reps before switching over to my left hand. My left arm, I could never really get the timing right on the push press, so I didn't really want to push it too hard with my left arm because I felt like it could be potentially a dangerous situation. So I just went back to my strong arm, which was my right side, and finished out the event. And I was pretty pumped up because I really did not expect to end up with 11 reps on the circus dumbbell for event one. So I was pretty thrilled with that. This left me in joint third going into event two with another competitor in my class. And that's pretty much like the story of the day. I sat in third or joint third for most of the day before the final results were tallied. So now let's move on. All right, so event two was a wagon wheel axle deadlift. And for those of you who aren't familiar with neither of those things, a wagon wheel will put the bar height at roughly 14 inches. And with it being an axle bar, it's basically a fat bar. So it's roughly 1.5 inches to 2 inches in diameter. It's pretty thick. And with these particular rules, we weren't allowed to strap in until time started. So that kind of took away a couple of reps. And for me, 275 on an axle was kind of topping me out. I can hit roughly 300 and up to 315 on a standard deadlift bar, but on an axle bar, I really struggle for anything north of 270 pounds. So I wasn't sure exactly how this was going to go. But again, my mindset walking in here was just, hey, one rep and then go from there. If you can get one rep, you can get 2 reps, and just kind of kept going from there. So I wait for time to get called, get my feet set up. I strap in. And my first rep or two, I wasn't completely balanced. So you'll see me kind of reshuffle my hands here, reshuffle my feet, because it was super heavy on the right side, not super balanced. Once I get it balanced in on rep 3 or 4, I was able to start just pumping out the reps. And we were allowed to do what are called touch and go reps. So basically I could put the bar down and go. I didn't really do touch and go. I did touch, reset, go. Which is my preferred method. I like to reset. I like to make sure that I'm squeezing my lats properly, and that I'm pushing through my heels and my feet properly, and that my glutes are firing like they should be. I've struggled a lot with deadlifts. I don't really like a deadlift, if I'm being honest, because they can be incredibly painful. And because I've had some piriformis issues in the last year, along with some glute median issues, deadlifts can be kind of painful. Like, they can be kind of tough on me. So I managed to rep out 12 reps here and was really thrilled with that. It was well beyond anything that I had anticipated going into this event. And again, it left me in joint third moving into event 3. Now, event 3 was the Denny stone hold. I don't have Denny stones, so the best that I could do, if you go back and you see the training video, the best that I could do was setting up some gymnastics rings on my axle deadlift bar and basically doing a modified Jefferson deadlift holds for time. And so basically what I did with that in training was I'd load up the axle deadlift bar to whatever weight I needed to work up to in my deadlift. And then from there, I would go and just use the gymnastics handles and hold whatever weight it was. And the instability with that, I think, also helped me in this event because this actually felt super stable. And so just to get into it here, my right hand is holding 165 pounds. My left hand is holding 125 pounds. The rings themselves are only about a ½ an inch in diameter as far as the inner diameter of them. And they're somewhere around 6 inches around. So they're not exactly like comfortable. You know, you get them set in the palm of your hand, and over time they start to slip down. They eventually start to slip, 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 and slip. And you'll see my right hand is what gives out on me here. So I get the pick. This was a PR. Just picking this up was a PR for me. The timekeeper had asked me before if I wanted to have time called out for me, which I opted not to. I don't really want to know. I kind of like to be surprised. About 10 seconds in, my right hand, the Denny stone started to slip, and I felt it starting to go. And I kind of made the decision at that point that, I had a choice. I could either keep going, let it go all the way until my grip failed, or I could salvage, a little bit of myself for the next 2 events. I don't like to gas myself out 4 events ahead of time. So I really just was like, all right, I've held it for long. I knew I had held it longer than any training time I had. So I was like, all right, I know I've held it pretty long. I think that keeps me solidly in 3rd place. I'm gonna go ahead and drop it here and save myself for the last 2 events. When I got done, I had just over 20-second hold, which was good for 3rd place again, and kept me pretty much in the hunt for 3rd place. It was about this time that I was like, all right, I'm doing pretty well. I'm having a pretty solid event. I'm having a pretty solid performance. I just want to sit here in 3rd place. Like, I was totally cool with that. It would have been 3 out of 5, which was middle of the pack. I was totally down, totally fine for that. I had no idea what was going on with the other competitors. It was so incredibly loud in this expo, and it was so incredibly crowded. It was almost impossible to keep up with what everybody else was doing. But I knew I was in 3rd place, and this event pretty much put me in solo 3rd place. So I was satisfied. I was cool with that. And then the next event came up, and that was my big bear for the week. So event 4 was the Yoke Walk, and this was the one that terrified me the most. I was certain that I was going to zero this. I didn't highlight it too terribly much in the training video, but the yoke had been the hardest thing for me to train. The heaviest that I was able to work up to in training was roughly 280 pounds. This yoke was 365. I did not at all think that I could even break it off the ground. I wasn't even sure. I had also never trained with a real yoke. If you'll go back and look at the training footage, you'll see I trained with a chain yoke, which is quite a bit different in some ways than a regular yoke. So I was legitimately terrified of this event, and I fully expected to zero it and stay in 4th or 5th place after this event. But you'll see things don't always go as you think they're going to. So I get under the bar, I get set. I wobble a little bit at the beginning because I tried to pick it up and run instead of just picking it up and then moving. Once I got it up, I was able to start moving. And then it just became a mindset challenge. And you'll see my hype squad got a little bit out of control here. I think everybody that knew how much of a struggle this was for me knew how important this event was. So going back to the beginning, I pick and try to move too soon, so I stumble. Once I get it picked, It was incredibly wobbly, but this is where I think the chain yoke helped me because I was used to that wobble from the chain yoke. About halfway through, I start to stabilize, everything's going good, I start to move, and I ended up with a 12.94 second run, which is completely just bonkers to me because I did not expect that to happen. And again, you can see my hype squad, my best friend, and a couple of our other friends were there, and they were as excited as I was for it. This, I think, is where the shift happened, or was starting to happen. I ended up again in third place with a pretty solid run here, sub 13 seconds. I didn't really know it. I had quit following the scores at that point. I was pretty much set that I was in third place and like that was how that was going to play out going into the Atlas Stones. And I was thrilled. I was like, yeah, I'm down. Like, I'm good with being third place with the two incredible women that were ahead of me. I was just thrilled and honored to be part of the podium with them, and I was totally fine with that going into the Atlas Stones. Now, going into the Atlas Stones, I had pretty much quit looking at the scores at this point and had no idea, but at this time, there was only a 1 point difference between second and third place. So, my mind at this point was, I've done the hard stuff. The stones are the fun part. I love Atlas Stones. I love training them. I love competing with them. They are absolutely by far my favorite event to do. And so I was like, all right, I train these weights are pretty standard for what I train at home. I knew I could get all 3 stones. The only thing that I'm a little bit disappointed with on this run, as you'll see here, it's a little slower than what I had in training. My runs in training were substantially faster. This was a roughly 16-second run. My average in training was about 12, so I really could have been faster. But there were a couple of factors at play here that kind of made it a little bit slower. For starters, I put on my spray tacky too soon. When they told us to start getting ready and prepping for warm-ups, I went ahead and sprayed my arms, got my vet wrap on. But by the time I actually got up to the line to go, my spray tacky was pretty much useless because it was dry. And a lot of people were having that same issue with their tacky. Their tacky was starting to bind up and like it wasn't as sticky as it should. The other thing with our first 2 stones, the first stone was 115 pounds, the second one was 145 pounds. From what I felt, it didn't feel as if either one of those was sealed or polished. They felt almost brand new. And typically speaking, with a brand new stone or with an unpolished or unsealed stone, they're very dusty. So it kind of would have been useless for me to have tacky on at all, which to my advantage, I don't train with tacky at home very often. It's pretty rare that I train with tacky. So, I knew going in that, all right, well, I'm just going to have to pick it up, without the aid of tacky. So that's what I did. The 160-pound stone had tacky on it because as soon as I grabbed it, I felt like a really big wad of tacky on it. So I was like, all right, this works out. I would have liked this run to have been faster, but given that, at this point, I had pretty much accepted third place, was totally fine with that. What I didn't know was I bested second place by 4 seconds here. Had no idea, did not look at the scores. My phone really wasn't working inside the building. Like it was like the signal was terrible and I had just kind of given up on keeping up with scores because like my whole point really wasn't to keep up with scores. Like that's a nice additive, but it's not really what I was trying to do. I was just trying to basically just prove myself wrong. I am hyper competitive, but it's never anything personal. So I don't want like anybody to say like, oh, you were hyper competitive with this particular person. No, I'm not hyper competitive with any particular person. I'm hyper competitive with myself. It's like, I expected to go in and be in 4th or 5th place. And then when I started doing well enough to be in 3rd, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go for 3rd because that's where I'm at. That's where I thought I would be, where I thought I would land. I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm going to keep pushing for 3rd place. I had no idea at all that I would end up in basically a joint 2nd place situation. If you go back and you do look at the scores on Iron Podium, 2nd and 3rd technically tied. I believe they either based the final podium positions on the Atlas Stone run, which, like I said, I was 4 seconds ahead of the previous 2nd place individual, or if they're doing it on count back. Because if you go back and look at the previous 2 events, I also beat out the 2nd place finish or the previous 2nd place person by a few seconds. again, I wasn't setting out to do that. That was well above and beyond what I had anticipated, well above and beyond what I was expecting. So to end up in a second place finish, what I consider a joint second place finish against very experienced competitors and super cool people, man. Like, our first place winner, she bested me by 9 points, but she was super awesome. I really had an enjoyable time talking to her, competing with her. She gave me some tips on several different implements. The other finisher, who ended up in third place, I've trained with her before. I really like her. I have a lot of respect for her because she's very deeply involved in the sport. She's super cool. She's super nice. I kind of have mixed feelings about finishing second in only my second competition because I really truly expected the zero-sum events. And I know that that's going to happen. There's going to come a time where I'm not going to have a great performance. And so I'm trying not to be like super arrogant or confident or any of that stuff because realistically, I'm kind of at a disadvantage. I don't have a coach, so I do all my own programming. I don't have a nutritionist or a dietitian helping me, so I do my own nutrition. I do my own diet planning. I don't have training partners at all, period. I train at home in a home gym by myself, and I'm not that intense about my training during my regular training cycles. I get pretty intense at competitions. I don't know why. Like something else kind of takes over. I guess they call it beast mode. I don't know. But something else kind of takes over and I get a little bit more intense. But if you'll notice, I'm wearing a nasal strip pretty much for the entire day because one of the things I don't like to do is I don't like to get super hyped up because then I make mistakes and that's when I get injured. And that's a lot of why I got injured throughout training. I don't use stimulants, so I don't really drink caffeine anymore. I do take a pre-workout, and I took a pre-workout on comp day, but it's a non-stimulant pre-workout. And I try to really save the intensity for being under the clock. And when I'm not under the clock, I really make an effort to do a lot of nasal breathing to bring the parasympathetic nervous system into place so that I rest and I can recover and I can be ready for the next event. The thing that I'm super proud of, besides the individual events within this competition, I really am thrilled about the fact that I didn't gas out. I didn't gas out at all. I mean, I got sort of tired towards the Atlas stones, but whereas with my first competition last year, I think I stayed so amped up throughout that whole entire competition that by the time the Atlas stones rolled around, I was done, man. I was so tired. And I think that was what contributed to me having such a terrible performance on the frame carry last year, was because I was gassed out from the deadlifts. Whereas with this particular competition, because I had taken the time to learn how to utilize my parasympathetic nervous system and kind of turn that on and then turn on the sympathetic nervous system. If you don't understand the difference of them, basically the parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and recovery nervous system. It's what keeps you calm, what lowers your heart rate, that sort of thing. Whereas the sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response. And for me, learning how to control both of those and utilize those to my advantage, I really do think helped keep me pretty consistent throughout the competition. Because when I got to the line, I did a lot of nasal breathing to keep my nerves down, to keep me from getting super anxious. But as soon as my hands went on an implement, it was like somebody flipped the switch and I just was ready to go. It kind of was this wild, mind-blowing, out-of-body experience for me because I legitimately did not, I didn't feel like I was even in control of my own body. It was just like training took over and they say beast mode, Hulk out, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it. I say it was Mrs. Hyde taking over. So that was kind of cool. And it's a neat feeling, but it's kind of a wild feeling too because I didn't really feel like I was in control of my body. And you can see in a couple of the videos, I get pretty amped up about it because, I completely obliterated all of the goals I had for this competition. And to end up in second place in such a good field of people, people that I really respect and like and who are really super nice. And, we all cheer for each other. Even whenever I was shoving a donut in my face, I'm still trying to cheer for everybody because the stuff's hard, man. It's not easy at all. So it was a wonderful experience. It was incredibly well run. I really liked how efficient it was. The promoter did an excellent job. It was his first competition that he's ever run. He did a phenomenal job. It was cool to see people like that I knew, like that I've competed with or trained with in the sport, but it was also cool to kind of see like the celebrities in the sport that sort of. So it was just all around an absolutely amazing experience. So I had an absolute incredible time. It was so much fun. I'm ready to do it again because I really enjoyed it. My next event is in less than 4 weeks, so I have roughly like 3 weeks to really kind of work on my technical proficiencies for the next series of events. I'm not going to gain a whole lot of strength in that time. We'll see what happens at that one. I believe now, because I finished second place at South Carolina Strongest, that I am qualified for Masters Nationals, which kind of throws off the plan I had for the year a little bit. My original plan was, once Lift Me I'm Irish is done, was I was going to go on a weight cut. I'm the heaviest I've ever been in my life right now, sitting around 82 kilos or 180 pounds. So I really want to lean down. I need to be lean for dog sports because of the protective equipment that I wear, and I need to be agile and I need to be light on my feet. So I really do need to cut weight. I might get one full diet cycle in before I would have to start training for nationals. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to go to nationals, assuming that my my suspicion is correct that I did qualify. I think I did. I'm not 100% sure, but that's not confirmed yet. If I decide to go to nationals, then I'll have to start focusing on training for that. But I do think I'm going to get one diet cycle in so I can drop a little bit of weight. I'm so heavy right now and full of carbohydrates and creatine, and like I don't feel so good. So I really want to kind of focus on dieting down for a little bit. I'd actually planned on taking a little bit of a break from strongman for a little while to focus on hypertrophy, but clearly that's out the window now. So we'll see. It's kind of going to be a wing it and play it by ear and see if I can get myself prepped for nationals and accomplish the rest of my goals for the year. You know, we'll see. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to me ramble on and give you kind of a recap of the competition. We'll catch you later.